Your secrets, if you really look at yourself, you would be speechless. What happened to being doctors and teachers? What happened to being your brother's keeper? Nowadays, kids more worried.
Mr.BandClap, and we in the building with my last podcast of 2018, man. It's been a real dope year. I really appreciate and thank all of my new supporters, all of my new listeners, everybody who's been rocking with me this 2018 11 year. And I'm going to end it with this third part of the Oshun series that I was doing, talking about keeping your heart. So this podcast is going to be talking about no matter what you go through or whatever, if you're a good-hearted person, keep your heart. And I'm going to talk about the rewards and how Oshun got everything back that she lost and then some, just because she kept her heart. So, all right, y'all. We got a lot to talk about, so let's get this show on the road. All right, y'all, so we back. Welcome to another BandClap TV podcast. I hope everybody had a good Christmas. For those who celebrated Christmas, I know Christmas just passed. Unfortunately, for me, I wasn't able to go home this year for Christmas, but at least I was still able to talk to my family on the phone, and they're doing good, so that's cool. Also, I want to give a huge shout out to my little brother, Randy, because his birthday was on the 26th of December. So shout out to him, aka my greatest Christmas present that I ever got. And one day I'm going to tell that story on one of my podcasts on the things that happened when my little brother was born, because I was 10 years old at the time. I was either 9 or 10 when he was born, because he's 10 years younger than me. So I'm happy for him, happy that he's staying out of trouble and doing good in school and all of that, especially now in the climate that we're in. It's so hard for these children to stay on that straight and narrow path. So I'm just glad that my parents are still together, and they done a bang up job raising me. I know that much, because man, I was always the rebellious one, but I was always the quiet one too. So Randy's kind of taking after me as far as being the quiet one. And I just hope that he keeps his nose in them books and graduate and do something spectacular, whatever that is. So moving right along, you already know I'm gonna bring this up like I do on every podcast that I brought it up on, and that is Rockin Crawfish. That's the restaurant that I DJ at. They got real good food, real good drinks. The vibe is real dope. The atmosphere is banging, and I definitely want to see more of you all coming into the restaurant, even if it's just to get something to eat, say what's up, and dip out. I appreciate it. Appreciate all the new faces that I've been constantly seeing at Rockin Crawfish. And like I said on my last podcast, we got some real big things in the works for that restaurant if everything stays as righteous as it's supposed to be. So I definitely want to see more faces in the place. Yeah, I mean, so shout out to all the people there. And all right, y'all, so let's get to it. So as you all know, this is going to be my last podcast for 2018, and this is also going to be part 3 of this Oshun story that I've been telling for the past 2 podcasts. Now, going into 2019, I want to really start touching on more metaphysical type of topics. And one of the things that I really want to cover is the fact that time isn't linear like the way we learn. It's actually circular, and that's why you have different cycles and things like that. And that's also the reason for deja vu. It's just that usually our brain and our spirit don't totally be in sync most of the time when this phenomenon happens. And I feel like if it was, you would kind of go insane if every time you do something and you feel like you've done it before. So that's going to be what I'm going to talk about in my next podcast, and I'm going to be covering the Orisha Ochosi, which in Yoruba and in Santeria, Ochosi is a male Orisha, and he is known as the Great Hunter. So that's what I'm going to be talking about on my next podcast, which will come out sometime in January. It may not be the first, or it may not even be the first week, but I'll definitely let you know when that comes out. Just follow me on my BandClap TV Facebook page. I'll put all that information in the description of this video, and also follow me on Instagram at BandClap TV. I'll also have that information below as well. So, all right, y'all. So when I left off of this pataki, or parable, talking about Oshun, and just as a quick recap of the events that went on with her all the way up to now, she's been kind of like this philanthropist type of character. I mean, she's been helping out the community, doing all of these things. And I remember when I said that on my last podcast, I kind of glossed over it, but just so you all can really take in what this chick actually did when it comes to quote unquote saving the community, because this wasn't no little stuff that she did. I mean, she did very grand and monumental type of things to help her community out of the different famines and things that they was going through. And also, like I said before in the last podcast, that she also got into relationships and other type of sexual situations that she really didn't want to do, but she knew that she had to do it in order to save the community. So I'm going to give you two examples. So the first example happened around the time in Yoruba, just a little bit after Obanani and Shango broke up. And the exact event that happened after that, I'm going to discuss that in a future podcast. But as a result of that event, Obatala, which was the father of the Orishas, which was Oshun's dad, got very mad, not just at the Orishas, but there was just a lot of stuff going on in the world at that time that was just unacceptable and unnecessary to be going on. So just like what happened in the story of Noah, Olodumare, or what you would call the Most High, caused a major flood to happen due to heavy raining and storming and stuff like that, that the water level started to rise in a very fast and quick manner, to the point where the earth was almost swallowed up again by water. They said it rained for 16 days non-stop. So you would imagine that all of the Orishas would be highly concerned about this, because now you're putting the well-being of the people and the animals and all of this stuff at a huge risk. So the Orishas decided that they was going to use birds to send a message to Olodumare to stop the rain and to apologize for everything and all of that, because also at this time, after Obatala caused this huge flood and huge raining and all of that, he left the scene and he transformed as what we know now as the Orisha Oko. So while he's fed up and frustrated, the only thing that can really save the world is if somebody can get up there to whatever heavenly plane that Olodumare is on and make some type of apologetic intercession on behalf of everybody. So first the Orishas got together and found two mockingbirds, and they gave these two mockingbirds the message. So the two mockingbirds, they flew as high as they could, but unfortunately they wasn't able to reach Olodumare, and they ended up falling down out of the sky. So then after they miserably failed, Oya was like, man, fuck this, I just go up there and send a message to him, because at this time Oya was kind of secretly starting to feel bad about what she did with Shango and Obanani. So she was like, look, I'm gonna use this chance right here to go on up there and send a message to Olodumare to apologize for what I did to break up Shango and Obanani. And everybody was like, okay, cool. I mean, she's the Orisha of storms, and you know, she's the Orisha of the air, so if anybody could make it up there, it would be Oya, right? Wrong. She tried. I mean, for hours and hours and hours. She flew up, but even she failed. She fell down from the sky. So now everybody's just like, man, all hope is lost. The earth is done. We're over. Now with Oshun in the background looking and seeing everything that's going on, she see that none of the other Orishas can go up there and talk to him. The only one who can do it was her. And one of the reasons why Oshun has so many paths, because I don't think that I covered this in any of my other podcasts, but Oshun is a master shapeshifter, and she has that power and dominion to possess any human, any animal, or shapeshift into any creature, because her purpose on this earth, or her purpose as an Orisha, is to show you that everything has beauty depending on your perception, and that not everything that's beautiful is going to always look physically pleasing to you. I mean, you can see that in everyday life. It's always that underdog, and it's always that least likely person that ends up saving everybody. Now with Oshun's thinking, she's like, what type of bird can I turn myself into that can fly high enough stamina wise and also have a big enough wingspan to handle the different atmospheres that it would have to fly over? So Oshun disappeared for a minute, and when she came back, she was this huge buzzard looking bird. Now in appearance, this is one of the ugliest birds that you could ever lay eyes on, but when it came to the job that needed to be done, it was the perfect bird. And poor little good-hearted Oshun, when she stood in front of the Orishas all proud and happy and confident as that bird, she was like, I'll go and deliver the message to him. And them not even being able to fathom that such an ugly bird could actually be Oshun, man, they laughed in that bird face, said, get the hell up out of here. How can your ugly ass, big bird with Down syndrome looking ass, I mean, how can you possibly be able to send this message to Olodumare? So they laughed at the bird, and right before they could kick the bird out, Oshun was like, all right, well, since y'all don't believe in me, I'm gonna go and send my own message to Olodumare. And they was like, all right, whatever. So being as confident and as big-hearted as Oshun was, she started her journey. And despite what everybody else expected of her, which wasn't nothing, Oshun, or aka Ibokale, actually made it to Olodumare. And when Olodumare asked her, what is it that you desire, she had her chance to ask for riches or or ask for unlimited money, or I mean, I don't really know what type of currency or material possession type of things that they had back then, but I mean, whatever it was, she could have asked for it. But instead, she pled for her people. And Olodumare, looking confused, like, wait, do you want me to save these same people that just laughed at you for trying to come up here? And Oshun did a Jesus line saying, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. And he was like, all right, well, it is done. And in a small nutshell, that's how Oshun literally saved the world, aka those same people that didn't even like her. And yeah, when she came back down and everybody was laughing and rejoicing and praising, and she came back down as herself, those same people that laughed in her face, called her names, tried to kick her out when she was that bird, those were the same people that in the end had to exalt her as a queen. Just like how Olodumare, before she left his presence, he gave her a gift as well, saying that she would be crowned Yalorde, which means queen, and that she will be the official messenger of the Most High along with Alegba. Now that's only an example of the magnitude in what she did as far as helping the community. And as I said before, there was a lot of relationships that she got into as well that she really didn't want to be in, but she knew that she had to be in those particular relationships to save the community and to help the kingdom. So I remember I did a podcast and it was about the woman's imprint. And in that story about the woman's imprint, I talked about how Yemoya and Obatala, which is the great mother and the father of creation when you talk about the Orishas and Yoruba and Santeria. And I also touched on how Yemoya ended up leaving Obatala and going with Ogunju, which is the volcano god. And when they got together, their union transformed Yemoya, and also as far as on the earth, they created the 4 seasons. Now, the thing about Yemoya is she wasn't like one of those stick and move type of people, but she was one of those goddesses to where she knew that she was only in your life for a certain purpose and a certain path. And once that path and once that purpose is done, and then she'll just bounce. But with Ogunju, she had a little bit more feelings for him, so she didn't want to just bounce, but she knew that her path with him was over and it was time for her to move on. So Yemoya went to Oshun's house, and Oshun, being so happy to see her mom, she was just like, whatever you need, just tell me and I'll do it. So Yemoya was like, okay, this wasn't gonna be as hard as I thought. So long story short, Yemoya explained to Oshun the problem that she had as far as her being with Ogunju, and Yemoya was like, I don't want to just leave him lonely, but I know that since you're my favorite daughter and you're the love goddess and all of that, I know that he'll be in good hands if you take up where I left off with being with him. And Oshun, knowing about Ogunju, she was like, I mean, he's a handsome dude, but he's not the type of dude that I would necessarily go for as far as being in a long-term relationship or anything like that. But since she already agreed to it, she didn't have no choice again but to be with him for the sake of the kingdom. So now with you knowing those backstories and with me setting the scene, now we can go to the present, or now we can go to the way things were when I left off of my last podcast. So now with all of this being said, y'all would see why she would get depressed and start to deny her kids and all of that. And I don't know if I pointed this out on my last podcast, but her children also disappeared from her after she started to deny them. And that can pose as a lesson to anybody, because at the end of the day, it's one thing for you to have an earthly possession and you get that taken away from you, than to have a spiritual possession and that get taken from you. But it goes without saying that no matter what, you should always appreciate anything that the Most High gives you, because if you don't, then the Most High will take it away from you. But the beautiful thing about it, and this goes back to my very first podcast that I did when I said what's for you is for you. So we found out later that her children didn't actually disappear. Shango, in the midst of seeing everything that's going on and all of that behind the scenes, ended up going and scooping up the kids, and he ended up giving them to Yemoya to look after until Oshun got herself back together. And sometimes that's another thing that happens in our life when the Most High gives us different gifts and things like that, that we would take advantage of or even deny the gifts and talents. And we may go into a period where we almost forget about the gift and talent that we had, and then all of a sudden something will just come up out of nowhere that garners you needing to use that gift and talent, and then you find out how special you really are. And also you find out that you really didn't lose it, it just was hidden until an opportune moment happened where you needed to use it. So time passed, and Oshun and her kids, they lived in this cave that was beside this river, and to feed her kids, she would wash people's clothes in that river, and the people would pay her money, and she would use that money to buy food to feed her children. And as far as Shango was concerned, Shango was a good father. He was always in his children's life, and anytime they needed their dad, all they had to do was just go to the palm trees and he was right there. But since he was still a king and she was exiled from the kingdom, he wasn't able to help her out a lot. So that's why she had to fend for her own in a lot of ways. Now, speaking personally, this is usually the time in my life, and this is usually the time in people's life where they really start to doubt just the Most High. They start to doubt their gifts. They start to just doubt, why was I even blessed with all of this stuff just for it to get taken away? And for some people, this would be enough for someone to go rogue, for someone to just start doing crimes and prostituting or just committing heinous violent acts out of rage and out of anger and disappointment. But Oshun was steadfast and she kept her heart. And this is the reason why I tell people that I make allies, not friends. And people look at me like, that's, what do you mean by that? And what I mean by that is you should make long-lasting, genuine connections with people so that when you get into situations like how Oshun got in, where you lose it all for something that's not even your fault, you always have a group of allies, a group of people that you can trust that can help you out. Because me personally, I don't really have a whole bunch of friends, but I can say that I got a group of allies who, whenever I was in a deep bind and really needed some help, I was able to, no matter what kind of disagreements we may have had or what kind of things that we may have went through in the past, I always had allies that I could depend on. Now, in Oshun's case, she had the biggest ally known to man, which was Olodumare. So opposite from the way we all used to know Oshun as this real wealthy queen who just got all of these riches and all of this stuff, this was a point in Oshun's life where she was kind of at that all-time low and she was just making it paycheck to paycheck in the earthly term, but she pretty much depended on people coming to her to wash their clothes. So one day her kids was really hungry and she went out to wash clothes, and she went to the river, and the money that the guy paid her to wash her clothes, she got distracted and she ended up dropping the money in the river, and the money ended up floating away. Now this made Oshun very frantic simply because that was the money that she needed to feed her children, and if she wouldn't have got that money back, her kids would have been without food and all of that, which in earthly terms would be another reason for you to go rogue, for you to start robbing niggas and acting all crazy, because it's one of those situations where, okay, I'm down on my luck, I'm trying to make an honest living, and it's like one thing after another starts to come up, and then something happens where you lose your job, or you get robbed, or your car break down, and now you're like, damn, I had it all, then I lost it, then I got some of it back, but now my life is hell. And in the midst of all that, you still have to keep your heart, because like my mom always used to say, it's only a test. So Oshun ended up going to Yemoya because she knew that the rivers went out to the ocean and they connected, so she thought that maybe Yemoya was able to see her money floating down the river some kind of way. So she went to Yemoya, but Yemoya couldn't help her because she said she didn't see any money or anything like that. So now Oshun is just like, damn, what am I gonna do? So she turned to the last person that she thought she would ever turn to, and that was Olodumare, because she already developed a really good relationship with him early and became his ally. So that's why I said it's always good to have allies, especially in allies in high places, because when you get into a jam and you really need some high level help, you want to have some high level people in your pocket that you can not only confide in, but can also get you out of trouble sometimes. So she went to Olodumare crying because, I mean, she lost everything. She got the most precious thing to her back, which is her children, but now she can't even feed her children because she lost her money in the river that she was using to wash their clothes. So Olodumare, having dominion over all of the riches known to man and all of that, he told Oshun that she can take whatever she wanted and bring it back to feed her children. Now, I feel like for Oshun, this was the ultimate test. And in a lot of ways, this is how we're tested as well. I mean, you may have a situation to where, like a lot of these rappers and a lot of these underground musicians and a lot of these failed people with careers, they fall hard on their luck, but they got a real good talent, and something happens where that artist may get picked up by a smaller label of people who may not be able to pay you right now what you're worth. But if you stick with them, the rewards will be a whole lot greater. But you also got a Hollywood deal on the table that's willing to give you a $1.5 million advance and cars and jewelry and all the women you want or all the men you want or whatever it is. But on the flip side, you're naive to how satanic and how life draining the Hollywood industry can be. That's why, like I said, it is so important for no matter what to keep your heart, because your heart is always going to know the right answer, because the heart is connected to the real you. So all you have to do is just listen to that feeling, that gut feeling, and I can be a witness that it'll get you out of a lot of trouble if you listen to it. So back to Oshun. She had a choice whether to be a miser and try to take all of the riches from heaven and bring it back down to earth and never have to work again in her life, or she can just do what she initially came there to do, which is to retrieve the money that she lost. And being the good-hearted, steadfast person that Oshun was, she chose to only get the money that she lost. And this surprised the hell out of Olodumare. He was like, what? Are you kidding me? You mean you gonna pass up all of these riches and all of this stuff and you just gonna take that? Which really wasn't enough to even feed her children. It was literally just enough to just get by. And Olodumare, he seen this and he was amazed, and his heart just overflowed with compassion for her. And this is the day that Oshun not only became the goddess of beauty, the goddess of love, and the goddess of charity, she also became the goddess of prosperity, wealth, and abundance, because Olodumare not only granted her the money that she lost when she was washing clothes. When she came back home, she saw that her riverbank was full of gold coins and cowrie shells and all these finances and abundance financial wise. And from that day on, Oshun never had to live live a poor life ever again. But Oshun never went back to the kingdom as well. I mean, I feel like when you've been through all the shit that she's been through, I would have learned my lesson too, not to go back to the kingdom. Now, was she always like this? ... Y'all just gonna have to stay tuned and find out, because like I said about these Orishas, they have very, very tumultuous lives. I mean, all the shit that they had to go through to become an Orisha, man, I just gotta respect it. And I love talking about their stories and their patakis and all of that, because these are things that in 2018/2019 we're still going through to this day. And these are just simple life lessons. Like, I'm not even caring too much about talking about the Orishas themselves and their number and their color and their festival day and what things that you should offer to them, because all of that deals with the religious part of these African spiritual systems. But the things that you can take with you throughout your everyday life is the spiritual system of the Orishas. That's what I like talking about. And I know that I've been talking about Shango, Oshun, Oya, Olegba, who else? Obanani. And the thing about it is, I can go on and on and on. I can make so many podcasts just with 3 or 4 patakis, and they all talk about a different aspect of these Orishas. And like I said before, even with me talking about Oshun and keeping your heart and not losing yourself, and also loving yourself and staying true to yourself, for the sake of time, there's so much stuff about Oshun that I didn't cover and that I'm gonna cover in future podcasts as well. But I just want to leave a window open so that you all can do your research and tell me what you come up with when you meditate and get in touch with these spiritual deities. Now, to wrap things up, I just want to share with y'all some things that while I was in the middle of making this video, Oshun was having me do some homework, because she was starting to break down and tell me all of her incarnations that she's had on Earth. And these aren't all of them, but these are just the ones that came to me, and this is some research that you all can do about this. So none of these are going to be in order, because I don't have the specific dates and times and periods and things like that. But Oshun's energy has always been on the planet, and even before the name Oshun, there was a lot of goddesses that she came to Earth as. That's why when you go to these different spiritual systems and religions, you always find the same gods and the same goddesses. They just have different names and they look a little different, but they're all derived from the same African spiritual system, which something that I discovered were personified examples of planets, meaning that all of the love, beauty, and fertility goddesses, they come from the planet Venus, which is the love planet. And all of the messenger gods like Olegba and Eshu, they all came from Mercury. And we can keep going down the list. So when Oshun got older and she traveled to the Congo, and the people of the Congo created their religion or their spiritual system, which was Palo Miombe, she became Mama Chola or Chola Wengu. And in that spiritual system, she's the same river goddess that's over love, fertility, and riches and things like that. But once Oshun got older, she started to kind of inherit Oya's mean streak a little bit. Now, she would never be as vicious as Oya unless you just really, really cross her. Because I mean, when you look at the mythology behind Oshun, you can tell why Mama Chola don't play. I mean, shoot, she done been through a lot in her life. Then after that, she traveled to Cuba, and in Cuba they synchronized the deities with Catholic saints, and they called it Santeria. And this is the religion that they would study because they was in slavery, so they had to disguise the Orishas along with the Catholic saints so that they can still keep their African spiritual system and integrate it with the tradition. Now, a lot of people forgot that that's the main reason why this was done. So you still have Santeria practitioners and stuff like that that still hold up those traditions, but they just don't realize that, you know, we're not in slavery anymore, so you can just come on out with it. Then after that, the name Pambagira came up. Now with this one, I kind of wrestle with, because not only have I done a podcast on Pambagira talking about her briefly, I never really connected the two together until Oshun kind of broke it down a little bit. And the way she broke it down, she was like, even though Pambagira is more of the Urzuli type of energy, she represents those type of women that through some type of traumatic event, whether it was they got molested or they got raped or they got abused or something like that, where their mind isn't the same mind that a normal person would have because they didn't go through those same things. So a lot of these women, even though deep down inside they're good-hearted people just like Oshun, but they chose the nightlife instead of the honest life, which, like I said, that life just ain't for everybody, just like the nightlife ain't for everybody. But sometimes when you're put in certain positions and you have to operate within a situation, you just gotta do what you gotta do. And with a lot of these women, they're shunned and they're cast out spiritually as well as physically, because a lot of these type of women, their vibration isn't high enough to reach a lot of the other Orishas that could probably help them. So Pambagira, her spirit protects those women, and she acts as a line of defense and also as a divine messenger and a divine being acting on the intercession for them too. So when she broke that down for me like that, I was able to understand the synchronization of Oshun energy with Pambagira, because that makes sense on a grand scheme of things. Now, even when we talk about ancient Kemet and ancient Egypt, she will be recognized as either Isis, which is the mother goddess of beauty, or Het-Heru, which is another goddess of love and fertility and riches and all of that. And then when we go go to Mesopotamia, we have Ishtar, which is a Mesopotamian goddess of love and beauty and all of that. Now, Bobby Hemmett already pointed out the fact that the first Greeks were black. So by saying that, the goddess Aphrodite represented Oshun as well, because she was the Greek goddess of love, fertility, beauty, and riches. Even when we go to the pagan religion, you have Esther, which is the pagan goddess of beauty, and she symbolized the rabbit, and she's the reason why we celebrate Easter in the spring equinox. And lastly, when we go to Haitian voodoo and New Orleans voodoo, you will see that when you start to deal with the Loa, all of the love goddesses are under the Urzuli banner. So when you look at that, I would say that Oshun is more synonymous with Urzuli Fleda. So that's a little homework for y'all, man. I gotta give y'all something to work on while I'm working on these next few podcasts for 2019, because it's gonna be a little minute before I drop a new one. But I just wanted to go ahead and wrap this up, and it's not even really wrapping it up, because when I talk about Eshu, I'm gonna bring up a story in how Oshun was tested by Eshu and she lost. So this ain't over by a long shot. But as far as this story goes, this was a good wrap up when it comes to keeping your heart, because what I really wanted to bring home was placing your joy and happiness in something that's not of this world. AKA, if you are more focused on your spiritual growth and helping others, and no matter what earthly possessions or earthly friends you may lose while doing it or whatever, if that's what's in your heart to do, then by all means do it and stick to it and keep your heart, because spiritually you'll always be able to reaccumulate anything that you lost on this earth, because that spirit that lives inside of you is more precious than anything that you could ever obtain on this earth. So if you live your life cultivating that which is precious, then precious things are always going to follow you. All right, y'all. So that's my podcast. I really hope that you all had a great 2018 like I did. I learned a lot of things. I lost a lot of things. I gained a lot of knowledge, and I accomplished a lot of goals. And I just want to keep it going for next year, 2019. Bigger and better things for BandClap TV, Melly Amar, Jewelry and Gemstones, Freeman Business Solutions. I mean, I got so much stuff planned for 2019. It's not even funny, y'all. So just rock with me. Make sure y'all are subscribed to my Facebook channel, BandClap TV, as well as my YouTube channel and my Instagram, so that you will be updated with all of the latest from BandClap TV. And all right, y'all. Happy 2019, 2018. Let's get it, and we out.